Discovering possibilities and potential with passion every day. This is a TPPN production.
Well, before I get this podcast off and started here, this is a post-edit here that I want to let everyone know. This is just part one of the live show. It ended up going around 2 hours in length, the live show. So I wanted to break this into two parts, and it was pretty cool because part two is the PlayBook segment. That's the whole second half. We talk about PlayBooks. We have the picks of the week for the next show, the Wednesday-Thursday show. For this first half, this first part one, it'll just be the news of the week, the Apple TV stuff going on, and all of the other craziness that's going on in the iPad world. So without further ado, let's jump into part one of a two-part live episode of the iPad Possibilities Podcast.
Welcome to the iPad Possibilities Podcast, episode number 98, PlayBook versus iPad. This podcast is sponsored by Gadget Freeway. Check out all of their accessories and gadgets over at gadgetfreeway.com. I'd like to thank them once again for sponsoring this podcast. And once again, if you haven't heard, they've got the iPad Pill and the iPad case bag. I did like a full coverage on that on the prior episode, 97. So check out that episode. And thanks again, Gadget Freeway, for sponsoring this podcast. So we are here once again Sunday night for the live episode, and we're at episode 98, 2 episodes away from 100. So next week we'll be at 101. So it's kind of cool. And John Finnan is here with me tonight. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Tim. It's amazing that you've put out this many podcasts in so short a period of time.
Yeah, I got started beginning of February, late January, and I'm kind of amazed at myself because when I started the podcast, it's like, how am I going to talk about something every week that's impossible to do? And I ended up doing 3 weeks. So
yeah,
yes,
really,
yeah. So it'll be fun to do next 100 and 1,000 or whatever.
Yeah, maybe we should do something special for next week. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we could see if we could get everybody or a bunch of people that have been on so far on the live show back on.
That'd be cool
for Sunday.
Yeah, I'll try to get that up and running. Because the first episode, if you go back and listen to it, it's a 5-minute intro to the show. So 101's will probably be the 100th real episode, I guess.
No, don't cut yourself short.
Oh, yes, yeah. Anyways, let's get on to the show for today. And the first one I wanted to just kind of kick it off with was a concept idea. And this is an idea I've been tossing around as, iPad 4.2, as many people know, gets rid of that, basically the orientation lock on the iPad itself. It becomes the mute button, that switch like it on the iPhone. It's a mute button now instead of the orientation lock. And has me wondering if there's a better way to do this than that multitasking bar, and even probably a better way to do it than the physical button. And I was thinking how the iPad Nano does this. You're able to just twist your fingers around and rotate the screen pretty easily. I'm wondering if there would be a way Apple could implement something like that, where you're actually able to system-wide just use some sort of finger gesture to just rotate the screen. I think that would be better than the multitasking bar, because on the iPad, you want to rotate the screen quite a bit. And one thing I've been finding myself doing is I want to rotate the screen and then lock it. Rotate the screen and lock it again. I don't want to just have it loose and flying all over the place, but I'm finding myself rotating and locking quite a bit. Is this idea something compelling to you or feasible?
I could see that. I don't have an iPod Touch, so I don't have much experience
with the Nano, you mean?
With the Nano, but I could see that. I'm not sure that I really miss with the beta. Really miss using the Switch, because it's so convenient for me to, if I want to lock it, I switch it. If I turn the iPad and say, oh gee, it's locked, I can flip the switch and unlock it, and it rotates, and then I could lock it again if I wanted to very easily.
So you've changed your tune on that, because initially you liked it, right? You liked the mute button there.
I did. and now that I don't, I have it. I do like the. I wish there were two switches. Really.
Yeah, version 2 of the software. Add another switch there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I got used to the quick muting with the down volume button.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have found that it is convenient to still mute it. There are times where I'll start up something on the iPad that's making noise that it shouldn't be, and I'm in a place where I don't want to make noise. So I the mute button is good, but I do find that having to go into the multitasking thing and go, move to the extreme left and lock it that way is not very convenient. It's actually, I should say that it's convenient to lock it. It's not convenient to unlock it.
Right.
Because, you're in the middle of something and you're trying to do something, and that's when you realize you locked it and you now need it in the other mode, and now you have to, fire up the multitasking and do that. So that's what I find unintuitive is having to do that to unlock it. So
right. And one thing I found out is they're doing a better job as far as dealing with that whole unlocking thing in the beta. Even with I noticed on Hulu app, if you go to that multitasking and want to unlock it, if you just jump out of the multitasking bar, it immediately starts playing back. So stuff like that helps, but the physical button is, I think, much better for this. And I hope this is like a bug or something they're just trying to test out and get feedback from developers to see if we like it or not.
Yeah, I think it's certainly interesting whatever kind of response they get for it. I think that people missed from the iPhone to the iPad, missed the mute button, but they came to realize very quickly how useful the rotation lock was there.
Yeah.
So
anyways, on to more bugs and weird things. I noticed earlier that USB audio out of the camera connection kit is no longer working either in or out of the iPad under the latest beta. And I'm hoping this is a bug. I filed a bug with Apple letting them know that, hey, this got accidentally disabled for whatever reason or whatever. So I'm hoping it's a bug, and that'd be a real shame if Apple decided to pull that feature. For those that don't know, its ability to hook up any USB device, audio device, to the iPad via the camera connection kit to use USB speakers, microphones, mixing boards, whatever it is. So that's kind of a real shame if it's gone for good.
Yeah, it was obviously kind of an undocumented feature when they introduced the iPad and the camera connection kit, and so it is a shame if it's pulled. I'm wondering if it's pulled in this beta because they're working on it to make it better.
That's kind of interesting because a lot of other developers noted under beta 1 it was actually working better than on 3.2 point whatever. So it actually improved, and then they just got rid of it. So they might be just removed it while they're working on it for final release, and they might add magical support for printers with this USB stuff too. So no.
Yeah, I mean we won't know until it appears again or it doesn't ever appear again. But
right.
Yeah, I mean it does seem that if it was in beta 1 and not in beta 2, I don't know that they would have just pulled it out of beta 2 instead of having pulled it out of beta 1, unless they were ready to build beta 2 and it hadn't been reworked as much as they wanted to rework it, and so they just decided not to build it.
Yeah, hopefully it's an accident, or just they're waiting to put it back in. Mm-hmm. So anyways, without the speculation, let's get on to some Google running on the iPad stuff. We've got two different links here. Basically, the bottom line here is we've got Chromium or Chrome OS running on the iPad, and I'm not sure how official this is or whatever, but it's kind of interesting. It's like running Windows 95 on your iPad. I don't really see a need for it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I guess there's a slight difference I would see in that it's certainly a modern operating system, but I'm not sure why you would really do this. The iOS is a good OS, and if you want to run Chromium, you're certainly going to have an opportunity. I think with a lot of tablets coming out that will run Android and or Chromium probably.
Yep, definitely. So yeah,
So.
kind of cool, but I won't be doing that anytime soon. The next two bit of stories here for the week are related to the iPad 3G. If you have the Beta 2, evidently it adds tethering settings if you're not in the U.S. So if you're in a United Kingdom or whatever, they've got tethering settings. So you actually tether your iPad to your Mac, which is just like you can on the iPhone. It's kind of cool. And I'm guessing why it's not in the U.S. is because they don't want people with unlimited data to be tethering to their Mac.
Well, it does go back to our carrier, AT&T, and when I saw this, I immediately jumped in and said, "What? U.S. only? No, I need this."
Right, and I'm
So,
guessing. Does this kind of hint that AT&T may add a iPad tethering option for $15 like they did the iPhone?
I don't know why they haven't already. It certainly,
money venue for 'em.
yeah. I mean, it certainly seems a very good thing. And particularly, there are a fairly few number, I think, of people with the unlimited data, and most of iPad users are, already capped. So,
Yeah, monthly
what do they care if people want to pay them another $15 to have their laptop use up that 2 gig as opposed to their iPad? I mean,
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, it's in there. It's kind of cool. The next bit is once again the 3G. The France carriers are looking to subsidize. This is just a rumor, I think. 3G iPads, so they'll be cheaper. Sort of like an iPhone price for 3G iPads, and you have like some sort of contract, and that is somehow appealing to me for some reason. Because I haven't turned off my iPad 3G data since I got it. And part of that is because it is unlimited and I can't do that anymore. But part of it is because I stopped my iPhone data plan and just went to the iPad. Now, if AT&T had a subsidized iPad with that unlimited data plan of $3 a month, I might have actually considered it because it's only $30 a month. It's not $60 or $80 like a phone is. Wait, is this compelling to you?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing about subsidized phones or a subsidized iPad with 3G is that it lowers that upfront cost, and certainly that's what makes it appealing. And if, as you say, if you're somebody who already knows going into it that they're going to pay for every month for the service anyway, then it certainly does make sense to in that regard. It's like the first GSM phone I got was an unlocked phone. I wanted a particular phone. It wasn't really available in the U.S. It was available in Europe, but I wanted it. Thought it would be useful in for me, and so I got an unsubsidized phone for many hundreds of dollars.
Yep.
And I then had to buy a plan for it, and so it's very similar to what I just did with the iPad. Is you pay for the device and then you go pay for your contract. You're on a contract anyway, so as you say, might as well get a little bit of that money back by the subsidy. So
Yeah.
certainly your plan is not typically cheaper if you didn't get a subsidized device with it.
No, in many cases it's a lot cheaper if it's subsidized because you can do prepaid with the unsubsidized stuff for.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyways, it's kind of interesting. I think it might take off, and it's kind of interesting also because of the situation with the Android tablets, and many of them are speculating, hey, they'll be subsidized, and people don't want, and they're saying how people might not actually want that. They might not want another monthly bill. And I think they're right for a lot of people. I think they're wrong for a lot of people. So it's just, they'll shake up and it'll, get figured out in the whole ecosystem of how this is all going to work. It's still new in the tablet game.
Yeah, I would say that one thing is kind of unique. At least I feel it's unique about the iPad 3G is that, people can get it without a contract, and they can do that month to month and turn it on and turn it off. provided they don't have the unlimited from
Right.
the beginning and can never turn that off if they want to keep it. But the point is that most people buying iPads today and for the last few months have not had that option. And so it is kind of neat to be month to month. I can certainly see where there are times where I might not really need 3G. I mean, I certainly wouldn't give it up now that I have it,
Right.
because, I like to be able to, when I park the car, pull up something on the iPad and not have to worry about whether I'm close
Right.
to a coffee shop that has Wi-Fi going outside or not.
Yeah.
But I certainly see other people that, and maybe those people already just bought the Wi-Fi model. I don't know. But if they bought the 3G model, there's probably some of them that would say, okay, well, if I'm in town for a month, I'm going to not pay for the 3G. And if I end up traveling, then I'm going to pay for the 3G or some variation on that kind of scheme. So I think it's great that there is this option of month to month. But certainly I think there's a fair number of people who would like to get a subsidized thing and save a little money up front at least. And, if they know they're going to use it.
Right. And another question to pose is with the Wi-Fi models that I think all tablets should probably have a model of, if you have subsidized units, what's the pricing structure? You have a Wi-Fi model for $500 and you have this a subsidized one for $200, and people are like saying, why is this $500? Because a lot of people don't get the whole subsidized thing. It's just how it's been or whatever.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of something that you have to, and I guess that's why, Apple has an iPhone and an iPod Touch. Mm-hmm. And, if you look at it, really, I think most of the iPod Touches, if not all of them, are more expensive than what you typically get an iPhone for if you haven't already bought one under a subsidy.
I think they're the same price, except for the only difference is it's a less capable hardware. So it doesn't have the IPS screen, doesn't have the higher res camera and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's the same price. So for 32 gigabytes, you get $300, which is the same as the iPhone, I believe. And then you're able to get 64 gigabytes, with the iPhone can't do yet.
Right.
One final question I had for you. You've got an iPhone and you've got an iPad 3G. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed yourself using less data, and have you actually downgraded your data plan because of the iPad?
I have not. I actually thought that would be the case. I still find myself a lot of times pulling out the iPhone because I'm traveling, I'm in motion or whatever, and it's just not convenient to pull out the bigger iPad to look up some information or whatever. Or, maybe I left the iPad at home because I knew I was, going to be places where it'd be inconvenient to have it in my hands, and I didn't really have a cool bag that I could carry it in, or I didn't want to have a bag with me.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of times where the iPhone is just more convenient. Now, I haven't actually looked at my data plan to really look to see how much less I'm using it. I'm sure I'm using it less.
You're still unlimited, correct?
But I'm still on the unlimited.
Okay.
Again, I would have to see several months consistent where I was well under the capped plan to really decide to drop it down, because I don't want to give up the unlimited if I'm going to use it.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious what my data usage is right now on my iPad. So let's see. I'm just going to check here real quick. So sorry for this little sidetrack here. But so far, say I've received 33.3 gigabytes and sent 1.2 gigabytes on my iPad. So I guess that's a lot. I don't know. That's over, I think, 3 or 4 months. It auto-deleted after a couple months, I think.
Now, Tim, are you finding that under cellular data?
Yeah.
Or where are you
No,
finding
it's
that?
under, if you go to general and then usage, you're able to turn on and off your battery percentage and then check your cellular network data.
Okay. So I've sent 270 megabytes and received 3.9 gigabytes.
Oh, yeah. I used a little bit more than...
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's move on to the next iPad, which will be evidently thinner with a camera, and mini USB is the next rumor we've heard on Monday. And the mini USB is interesting because do you think now that the Apple TV has this mini USB port that brings any more validity to this rumor?
Well, I don't know if I don't know how you bring validity to rumors too much, but
I'm still doubting this rumor. To be clear, I don't think Apple would put a mini USB port on this, at least in the next version. It'll be several more versions, I think, before we have any other sort of connectivity there.
Yeah, I think Apple's pretty happy with the hardware that they've put together. I mean, the Apple TV is a different animal, right?
Yep.
So.
Yep. And regarding the Apple TV, unless you have any more stories you want to talk about before we move on to the app updates of the week.
Nope. Go ahead.
The new Apple Remote app has been released. It's 2.0, and it's for the iPad, and it's, I have to say, awesome. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. Have you had a chance to download this one yet?
No, I have not.
And
so you like it a lot, huh?
Yeah, it's very cool. So it connects via home sharing now to all the libraries in your house. So before, if you remember, you had to do the 4-digit passcode. So you would find yourself running up and down stairs throughout the house for your Apple TVs and your iTunes libraries. Now, you just plug in your iTunes credentials, and you instantly have all the computers in your house that have iTunes sharing and Apple TVs and stuff, and it's really remarkable how that all works now.
That's great.
That simple, quick fix.
Mm-hmm.
And with the new Apple TV, before, the only way to, basically on your iPhone or whatever, you could, search your library of stuff stored locally on the Apple TV or whatever. You could do that really easily. But the stuff that was streaming to it, you actually had to physically use the user interface on the Apple TV to get to the information in there. With the latest update here for the new Apple TV, you are actually able to see all of the connected home sharing libraries to your new Apple TV. You're able to go into each of those libraries, select which movie or TV show or music you want to play with having no interaction with Apple TV, just the iPad, and just start playing a movie that way. And I have to say, it's pretty remarkable how they're doing this. So, yeah.
So, Tim, did you get an Apple TV yet? The new one?
Yeah, I've got one.
All right.
Yeah,
good for you.
I've got one. It was $100, and I had to. So a little Apple TV discussion here. So it's incredibly small. That's what really struck me when I first saw it. I went to the Apple store to just see if they had them, and they had them. It was on, I think it was Wednesday before everyone else got them. I think that was the official release day, Tuesday or Wednesday, I forget.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Anyways, so I picked one up. It comes in one of the smallest boxes I've ever seen. Here's the box here. So it's really tiny. So the cool thing is, it's only $100, right? So the Airport Express is $100, and so that's the same price. And with that, you can actually just hook it up to your like a audio receiver with optical, and use it to stream music or whatever from your iPad or iPhone to those speakers. It does the whole AirPlay stuff.
Wow.
So I mean, it's the same price as. I'm really thinking the Airport Express needs a price drop.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So it's a pretty remarkable thing. I'm looking forward to the jailbreak scene that's going to happen really soon here, because I've been following some jailbreakers on Twitter, and it's already jailbroken, and they're starting to get recoding the old Apple TV apps for the old hacked Apple TV and getting them up and running on this new Apple TV. So I'm excited about all that. And so let's one quick thing before we leave Apple TV. AirPlay right now just does audio, even if you have the new beta of 4.2, which is really disappointing. Am I thinking here, you're a developer, John, is it because Apple TV is only running 4.1 and it has to be running 4.2, so that's why?
Yeah, I think they really are waiting, and I think they did not want to, fully release all these 4.2 features in 4.1, even on the, Apple TV.
Yeah.
So it's soon enough, and I know that they're
a month away.
Yeah. there's some people that are gonna give them a hard time for it, but early adopters that buy the Apple TV that don't get everything they thought they would get, but it's close enough
because it's like I've got the new beta. It says I can AirPlay videos. And the Apple TV is the only device that will do this, and it just sent audio. It's like, what's going on here? Because I didn't expect they'd push out a new update to the Apple TV to enable that, because the only people that be able to use this are people that are developers. So that made no sense to me. But anyways,
well, but I'm sure that because the Apple TV is released and the technology that they're building into 4.2 is not released, they didn't want to try to rush that feature into the Apple TV for stability reasons. Right. So they were able to just put it out without it really trying to implement the entire feature.
Right. And one quick thing before we leave Apple TV, AirPlay. So AirPlay, one cool thing I noticed, Hulu Plus does not have AirPlay built into the app. There's no way to enable it. But what I did figure out is AirPlay, if you start up your iPod, hit the AirPlay button and start streaming to your Apple TV or whatever, it'll continue, it'll keep that setting going for Hulu. So you can actually stream audio from Hulu Plus to your Apple TV. My dying question here is, do developers even need to implement this for video stuff? I'm wondering, would Apple do this? Would they just say, if you're already in the AirPlay mode, we'll just automatically, even if the developer hasn't put a button in there, just work? That would be kind of devious for Apple to do that, I think.
Yeah, and I think that would kind of go against what they normally do. I mean, normally they're expecting a developer to purposely implement everything, all the features that they want to use.
Would it? Because I'm starting to think here. You're in a mode of watching content, and you're already watching videos on your Apple TV through AirPlay. And would it be more of an annoyance for Apple to say you have to click this every single time you leave an app and enter another one? Would it be more Apple-like to say you're just going to be in AirPlay until you tell us not to be in it?
That's a good question, since AirPlay is kind of a system-level thing.
It's cool. I got Ziz to do it.
Yeah, in one sense, I guess it really depends upon how they want to treat it. Since it's really focused on the Apple TV, it's not an iPad focused technology. I have a feeling that they're going to be pretty restrictive initially on it. It'll probably open up over time, but I think they're being very restrictive of Apple TV initially, right? I mean, they're not putting any apps on it that you can add to it or anything. So
yeah.
So I think it'll be fairly restricted initially, because it's really an Apple TV technology, not an iPad technology. If they were releasing it, releasing it for the iPad,
that AirPlay is kind of their hidden way to get onto the Apple TV all this content?
I don't know that it's really hidden.
Well, I mean, Steve, when he announced on stage, he didn't make a big fuss about it. I mean, he announced it, and it was big fuss to people like us, right? But I don't think everyone caught just how amazing this really is, and I think it might be just their secret way of, they're not so secret, but secret way of getting stuff on there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, things are certainly changing with Apple, as we've seen with some of the apps that they've approved in the last couple of weeks since they changed their developer agreement. So I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe you got something there.
So yeah, we'll see. We won't know till November if they release a beta of Apple TV to the developers, that we'll know that. But anyways, yeah. Apple TV, it's basically an iPad without a screen by the internals. I forgot to put this in the show notes, but I fixed it to tear down. It's got the same stuff the Apple iPad does. Same exact processor. It's got 8 gigabytes of memory. Same memory, 256 megabytes, and it's basically just a little iPad without a screen. So, it's kind of cool what we'll be able to do with this one day. So,
very cool.
Anyways, on to apps. So, sorry for that Apple TV kind of offshoot there, rant or whatever you want to call it. But it's now an iPad accessory with this AirPlay stuff. So the New Yorker app is now released. It's basically $5 an issue, and there isn't any paper subscriber discount or subscription there. It's just $5 an issue, and I guess it's kind of cool. If you're a New Yorker fan, you can now get in your iPad, $5 an issue. It's kind of expensive, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I thought a lot about this, and $5. We've talked earlier about subscriptions on the iPad and how they had to really come down, and $5 is a lot, but I guess the audience for the New Yorker will probably pay it without batting an eye.
Yeah, the audience of the New Yorker has some income, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, people really, I think from what I have observed, people who, get the New Yorker are typically people who really, really like it, and it's certainly worth $5 to them.
Yep. And, the Sonos app, for those that don't know what Sonos is, this is a very bad transition to Sonos, but anyways, we're talking about AirPlay, and that probably would have been a better transition there, but Sonos, it's a speaker system, and that works, wirelessly, just like AirPlay, and they've released their iPad app, so you can choose which speakers your music goes to from your iPad, and all those things. It's a very nice looking application, and for those that use Sonos, it's a great new application, but I'm thinking Sonos will have a harder time selling their equipment now that AirPlay will become such a mainstream thing.
Yeah, I think Sonos, for people who know Sonos, this is just incredible news. In fact, I heard somebody on a podcast earlier this week saying, I wish they had a Sonos iPad app. They were using the iPhone app on their iPad, but yeah, so it's just another. To me, it's just another application that shows what a great device the iPad is for being an interface to a variety of specialized equipment. It becomes the ultimate morphing controller.
Yeah.
And so it's great to see it on the iPad.
Do you think? I just posed this question, Sonos. Do you think they'll add AirPlay functionality to their next generation of speakers to kind of keep them competitive and have more interest with them? Would that be something they'd do?
I'm sure that they're trying to decide that right now. I guess maybe it would depend upon how they really view their buying public, whether they think that that this is really a thing that they should do. Certainly, they've identified the fact that a lot of their users are iPhone, iPad users,
Yeah.
and
AirPlay, I think it directly attacks their market in a big way.
Yeah, I could certainly see that. So, yeah, they probably are certainly considering it right now.
Yep. Cool. Well, I'm not sure. Are you a football fan, John? Because I came across this when listening to a podcast today.
I enjoy football occasionally. I'm not somebody that watches 4 games a weekend or anything like that, but I enjoy occasionally watching a good football game.
Yeah, so I heard on Engadget podcast a while ago that you can actually get Sunday Ticket to Go on your iPad. And I looked into this a bit further, and it said $50 one-time payment. That looked really cool, Then I clicked, add a cart, and then it said, hey, you need to pick out your cable plan to do this, so $30 a month or whatever. You have to be a DirecTV user, and this has me just curious why not curious, but just kind of frustrated that you have to go through DirecTV to actually do this. NFL.com can't have you pay $50 or whatever to do this, to get access to basically live football games on your iPad or computer.
Yeah, I bet it's probably something to do. I mean, it's all involved with licensing, and I wonder if it was really DirecTV that tried to make this happen, and so they're using it as a play to get more people to sign up for their NFL programming on DirecTV, and they're probably subsidizing, the ability to use it on the iPad. And it might have, maybe the NFL said, well, if we don't have it subsidized by DirecTV, we're going to want to charge too much for it, and nobody's going to buy it.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of cool. I don't know. If you're a DirecTV user, and it's there for you, you can watch it on your iPad. So, next up, Pulse 2.0. It's a news reader. It's been updated it's got 60 news sources, and organization is, I guess, much better with this one. And you can actually add new feeds yourself and all of those kinds of things here. Are you a Pulse guy? I've found myself. I mean, these are great features they've added. You can look into the full feature list here, but I found myself not using news readers on the iPad. I use Twitter, and that's what I'm using these days. Are you using Pulse or apps like these?
I almost bought Pulse when it first came out, and and I just kind of looked at my habits, and I said to myself, I think it was about $4, and I said, I've got a bunch of things that I get news now, and I'm just not sure that I use them enough that I need something else. Because I'm pretty happy with the other apps I have. But I did notice that at least for a short period of time, Pulse is available for only $1.99, and so I was actually considering potentially getting it, because I have heard a lot of people praise it as being really a good news reader. Now, also there's this Pulse News Mini, which I don't know if you've seen anything about. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I guess that's just for the iPhone and iPod.
I imagine that's what's for, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Pulse user, it's out. Pulse users, it's out. The next one, this I think you'll be excited about, WordPress, 2.6. So if you're a blogger, you're now able to add video content from your iPhone, iPod Touch. I'm guessing your iPad if you had it in your iPad library. And then also has better support for local drafts, so you don't have, drafts go missing if you're not on wireless or whatever. And then it auto saves as you create them, just like the web version does. So it's a nice update here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to this. I have it loaded, and I haven't had, I haven't used it a lot to see whether all those problems are gone, but I did experience some of those local draft problems. So I'm looking forward to that. Although I'm also considering an app that I think you may be mentioning at the latter part of the show that I understand is now out and also does blog entries. So we'll talk about that later. But it's good for a free app, and I'll certainly be trying it a bit over the next week or so.
Yeah, and regarding, shooting video and photos and all that kind of stuff, Apple finally, after many months, released their Mobile Me Gallery app for the iPad interface. So whatever reason, it takes Apple a long time to get these apps pushed out to the iPad. And they finally have all the Mobile Me offshoots on the iPad. They've got the iDis, they've got now the Gallery, they've got the Find My iPhone, and all that kind of stuff. So the Gallery's iPad optimized now. It's also a cool thing is you don't have to be a Mobile Me user to get this app anymore. Before, you actually had to sign to your Mobile Me account just to view friends' galleries. Now, you can actually view friends' galleries without being a Mobile Me subscriber, which is a very welcome change. And they've also expanded the recent photos ticker area on the iPhone version, at least, into a full-blown photo frame feature for the iPad, basically. So when you sign to your account, you can add friends' galleries and it's just all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of cool, very welcome, and I don't use the gallery stuff at all. I just use the Find My iPhone feature of it.
Well, I do have some galleries out there, and I haven't done a lot with them. And quite frankly, I fired up the gallery iPhone app on the iPad and was somewhat, unimpressed by it, thinking that, here I should be able to do a lot more than I could do on the iPhone. So I'm looking forward to putting this through its paces, and certainly hearing that now friends that aren't, because I know very few people actually that are mobile meme users, but hearing that friends can actually see my galleries if they get this app, that's a very good thing. I think that will make me want to use the gallery more often.
Yep. And we got 2 more stories before we move on to listener feedback. We're going to try to get through the shows unless, as quickly as possible, but with still good quality. Anyways, so one story I saw on Twitter today from Katie Floyd is that Apple has revamped the recycling program to include the ability to, if you have a used iPad, if you have a used iPhone, if you have a used Mac, you can send those to Apple, and they'll actually give you a gift card for the amount it's worth in Apple's eyes, I guess. So I'm not sure how much that would be, but if you have a used iPad, you can turn that into an Apple gift card to get your iPad version 2 now. And that's a very welcome change. Before, they would just give you 10% off the price of a new iPod if you sent in your old one or something like that.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware they gave you anything. I mean, I've actually had a couple of opportunities. I've been a long time Apple customer, and I've had a couple of opportunities to do some kind of a trade-in with Apple in the past, but those were very limited runtime kind of rebate programs. I remember I had a titanium, what was it called? PowerBook, I guess back then. I had a titanium PowerBook that they offered a trade-in for a newer model. I forget what model it was at the time, but that was a good deal for me at the time. But yeah, this is great to hear. Now there's other outfits out there that pay you for some of your gadgets as well. So
Gazelle.com, for example.
Exactly. So it's probably something that you should, if you're interested in doing it, look around and see who's willing to offer you the most for it.
Yeah, it's certainly convenience over the eBay model of trying to do it yourself and getting charged afterwards for all the fees from PayPal and eBay themselves. So the last story of the day, and this one I should have moved up with Apple TV stuff. I apologize once again. This is Apple TV, but this is kind of cool. They've got the what they call low tide. So on the Apple TV, it's basically running iOS 4.1, and it's basically running an app called Low Tide. And they've got this app that is the Apple TV interface running on an iPod Touch 4th generation, running 4.1, just as the Apple TV is. And it's kind of clunky on the iPod Touch because it's a small screen. But what if we could have, and what if Apple actually released an Apple TV app for your iPad? And I think Apple might actually do this, right? They have an Apple TV app for your iPad, so you can just sit back, flick through your content, stream it to your iPad. You stop watching on your iPad. You can just go to your Apple TV, pick up where you left off there. You could possibly even AirPlay from your Apple TV app on your iPad to your Apple TV. And I'm excited by this. Many, many shows ago, I'm not sure if you remember, John, I actually asked, wouldn't this be amazing if they had an Apple TV app? So I think it's finally going to be coming pretty soon here.
Yeah, it does kind of lay the groundwork for some of that stuff. And I think, at least from the way I've interpreted some of the things that we've heard from Apple and Mr. Jobs, is that they really do like this idea that you can start playing your content someplace and easily move it another place. And certainly they weren't the first one to do that with the books, but they embraced that very quickly with iBooks. And so I certainly see this coming. Yep, definitely.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool. And evidently they're doing this mainly, the hackers right now, their main purpose of doing this is to start developing apps in this manner, so they can actually run on the iPod Touch and kind of test it in that environment. So that's the current goal of it right now. I think in the long run we'll be seeing this on our iPads though. But right now the iPad obviously is on 4.2, and that's not jailbroken yet. So it will be not until next month at least until we have this. So anyways, let's get on the listener feedback for the week. We've got a couple, 2 different ones here. And the first one is from Mike here. And here it's just an email I got. I don't know if you know this, but it might be interesting to your show. Do you watch the TV show The Good Wife? And I actually did watch the first season a little bit.
And in the first episode, evidently, of this second season, it's got an appearance of the iPad, product placement in a TV show that I've seen. The law firm that the lead works for gets a new partner who wants to move towards a paperless office and hands out an iPad to everyone. The wallpaper is branded for the law firm, and the camera focuses on the device in her hand for a noticeable few seconds. So, kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool.
And I have a question for you. I see Apple stuff on TV all the time, and I see a lot. It's kind of 50-50. Half the time they block out the Apple logo and just put some generic logo like they did on Numbers. And I still recognize it as Apple stuff, and in commercials they'll do the same thing. It's pretty obvious when you see a MacBook Pro up there. But anyways, I don't think Apple ever pays for any product placement on TV. I'm thinking these TV shows just use the latest, greatest, hot thing or whatever, and that happens to be Apple stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things going here, and I've kind of observed this for many years. I agree with you. I don't think Apple pays for placement unlike some other companies in that area. But I think what happens is Apple's products are newsworthy, and so they have some of that. But also a lot of the people in Hollywood that are producing these things are fans of Apple products, and so when it comes time to put some product in the shot, it's that's what they have to put in the shot, so they put it in the shot. But it is kind of interesting. I don't know if you watched the show Modern Family, Tim.
Yeah, they had an iPad episode.
They did, and that's just exactly what you're talking about. Is it was such a hot topic.
It was before it was released too, so that one had to have been an Apple.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was an Apple. I think they just realized that there was going to be so much excitement around the actual iPad release that they just wanted to play on that. And there was certainly a lot of iPad announcements and stuff happening in the news, in the general news, for people to get excited about it. So
the episode itself,
Apple, I'm sure Apple was contacted, and they agreed to give them an iPad for that. Though. But
yeah. Another thing, I started to watch Chuck recently, and it's an amazing show. So I went through all 3 seasons, and now in season 4. So they've been using iPhones in all of the seasons, and I noticed on their very first episode this season, they've got the iPhone 4 that they could make good use of that front-facing camera for some things. And another thing I noticed, they just had random iPads in the Buy More, the store there. They just had iPads that the General was using, and just random employees.
All the spies were using them in the Buy More. Yeah, I noticed that as well.
That was totally cool. It's like, wow, that's awesome.
So, yeah.
A big fan of Chuck. I think you are too as well.
Yeah, I'm a longtime fan of Chuck.
Yeah, I just started watching it literally 2 weeks ago. I'm hooked. So anyways, thanks, Mike, for the feedback. And I think we'll be seeing more and more iPads in movies and other places. So the next bit of feedback is audio. It's 30 seconds, and here we go.
Hello, Tim, and the co-hosts of the iPad Possibilities podcast. I'm a big fan of the Possibilities Network, and I'm calling to ask for your help. I'm currently looking for apps that will help me inventory the contents of my home. Should I be looking for separate DVD, book, and other specific catalog apps? Or is there a single app that will help me make inventorying my home a magical experience? Many thanks and best wishes. I'm Mike, and I'm calling from Cheshire in the UK.
Cool. Well, thanks again. Another Mike here for the feedback and inventory. Yeah, I love the voice. That's fantastic.
So I'm hurt that he didn't call me out by name and just called me the co-host. But but that's okay, Mike. We'll forgive you.
Yeah, this is John here.
Yes, hard name to remember, John, but that's okay. So there's a number of apps that you could probably look to. The first one that kind of tickles my fancy is, and now I've of course forgotten the name of it.
Is it
Database.
Delicious Library? Is that still
No. Well, Delicious Library, I don't know that you can do anything like that on the iPad, right?
I'm checking right now. What was your suggestion?
And I don't know why I can't remember this Database. Bento.
Oh yeah.
Bento for the iPad would probably be my first suggestion, because I think there are some probably some templates in there for that very purpose, home inventory. And certainly the nice thing about it is, however, Mike, you want to record your information, or what information you want to record about your inventories, you can customize it. So that would probably be my number one suggestion. And it would be somewhat magical, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. And Bento is the little brother of FileMaker. So if you want kind of some more information about FileMaker, and a lot of that pertains to Bento because they are such close siblings, check out, I did 2 FileMaker episodes, both with FileMaker developers, and we get kind of geeky in the FileMaker, and you can kind of show you the power of FileMaker, and a lot of that power is in Bento. So, yeah, I'd highly recommend either FileMaker. That's really high end. I probably recommend Bento, the two. But
yeah, I think that's very much the case. Is that, you know, if Mike's a real geeky programmer type, you know, FileMaker might be fine. But it sounds like for what he needs, Bento is more than enough for that. And there's a Mac version. I don't know if he has a Mac. Did he say he had a Mac or not? But if he wanted to, if he wants to sync it to the Mac, then Bento for the Mac as well. So you can, you know, enter it from the iPad and search it on the Mac if you want to, or vice versa, or whatever.
Yep. And I'll be doing a fuller, I had requests to do a database episode, and I'll include an inventory in that. So I'm going to be doing a fuller episodes, seeing what's out there for the iPad as far as inventorying and databasing on the iPad. So that'll be something I do in the future here. So for now, I'd check out Bento, and there's probably some other apps, but I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, you know, I thought about other apps, and I know that there are, you know, some specific apps for that thing. But, you know, the thing about an inventory is, you know, you do it once, and you might, if you're diligent, update it once a month or something. And it's not something that you know, unless you're like a lending library or something, you're not going in there and updating your information all that often. And so
buy things.
Yeah. And so the nice thing about Bento is it can be used for, you know, 101 other things. So your investment in the application, I think, is probably a little bit better than investing in a specific application.
Yeah, and there are apps for just bookshelves and things like that, but
right.
So yeah, I'll be doing fuller reviews of these and getting Bento in my hands and testing it out and all that kind of stuff. But for now, that's a good place to start, and yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, a good way to go. So, let's see. That's it for the feedback for this week. If you want to send in your own feedback, you can email that voicemail in, as Mike did, to iPadPossibilities@gmail.com. You can write text or just send in a voice email, or you can actually call in to 209-542-iPad. You can call in leaving your own voice message. I'd love to hear from everybody. What are your show ideas and questions and all that good stuff? So, love to hear from you guys. Well, that concludes part 1 of this 2-part live episode of the iPad Possibilities podcast. So, as you can tell already, this was a 2-hour show that needed to get split up here, and this was a great spot to leave off for today. And let me just do the normal closing things. As you just heard, you can leave feedback. I'd greatly appreciate that. You can leave reviews in iTunes. Those always help. And to support this podcast, simply visit GadgetFreeway.com. And the iPad case bag is now on sale. That's $10 off its normal price. Go to GadgetFreeway.com to get the case bag. The case bag, as I've said before, is both a bag and a case, and lets you just use your iPad on the go. Makes your iPad as convenient to you as your iPhone. And they also have an amazing, what's called the iPad Pillow. It's custom designed for the iPad. You can put your iPad inside of it to keep it safe when you're going to bed or sleeping or traveling with it, or just use your iPad in bed. It's what I use to watch videos in bed, and I'm able to get the iPad really close to my eyes without touching it and all that. It's just a very comfortable way to watch videos, and turns the iPad into a much bigger screen because I'm able to get closer and more comfortable that way. So check out all their stuff at GadgetFreeway.com. And once again, I thank them for the support of this podcast. And I hope you guys will visit their site and help this podcast out by supporting GadgetFreeway.com.
And with that, until the next episode, part 2, this has been the iPad Possibilities podcast on tppn.tv.